Okay, hello, welcome to this video about multi-channel decal alphas. The effect that I've created here, it shouldn't be so complicated, but there's a lot of messing about in this video. So I'm going to try and explain it as best as possible with this test that I've set up, and hopefully it all makes sense. But I did a lot of Googling and I could not find the answers to this. I started looking into something else, and now I'm very happy to have found this solution. But what I really want is someone in the comments to say, well, don't do any of that. Just do it with this basic other thing that works a lot better, because the amount of problems with this method is, way too much. So we'll try and go through them, and we'll go through the effect. So the main thing that we have here and what we want is we've got these metal areas that if I color in, then they're acting differently and they're on the decal. And then these other areas that are taking the normal from the decal, but if I change the color of the background, they also inherit that color. Part of what I've set up here is going to need you to think through some of the examples, because I've not got all of the textures available to me that I would make if this was a real example. But I figured this out and I want to explain it. So the first thing is that in the decal, it is pretty much standard. So you could imagine a base color texture being plugged in. I just don't have one right now. The texture that I do have is ambient occlusion, curvature, height, and the alpha. But you can see on here I've not actually plugged the alpha into the decal opacity, because if I do, I apply that, then everything disappears, because the alpha is then at 0 and it's not including any of that information. So I did try some stuff where the alpha was multi-layered, so you got 0.5 or maybe 0.2, 0.2, so on. So you got multi-channel alpha, through the different layers of the single channel. But again, then anything on a lower layer of that would appear less strength on the alpha. So just keep the opacity as 1, and then everything comes through as full strength. But the main trick to this is that this base material has a setting on down here called decal response, so that all makes sense, but it's set to none. So essentially, if I unplug all these that I plugged in and apply, then the decal doesn't appear. And if I apply the decal to a regular surface, it appears wrong. So the main drawback of this is this surface that I'm trying to apply this decal to, it can't use regular decals, and those decals that I'm making can't be used on regular surfaces. So that's a pretty big annoyance, because if I try and apply another decal to this, you can see that it's kind of doing funky stuff. The color's only coming through in the areas where I allowed it to in the shader, and potentially there'll be a solution there where you just use one of those multi-channel decal alpha layers to just output the decal straight up how it is, rather than messing about with trying to, get regular decals working on this surface. So it's just a big annoyance. But the main thing that's making this work is these debuffer textures. So debuffer texture node, and in that node you've got the option for base color, normal, and roughness. The base color is just the color and the alpha. The alpha is the opacity, which we've set to 1, so I'm not using it. and I'm using that and I'm combining it with the mask that I'm pulling out from the roughness. So the roughness here is referring to actually multiple channels. So the red channel here is the actual roughness output. The green channel is the metalness output, and the blue channel is the specular output. But that does mean that we can output the roughness as a regular roughness. The metalness, well, we'll get to that in a second, but the specular, again, that could be a regular specular. But the idea is that because we don't really use the metalness or specular very much, we can use them to pass through different data. So in this case, I'm passing through the alpha into the metallic. In this example, I am actually using the metallic. So if I was using all the layers, I'd want to sort of do the single channel stacking within a single layer of like the metallic, for example. And failing all of that, I would just use the specular, because the specular is going to be one that you're going to want to use. Well, no, the specular is going to be your least likely one to use, is what I mean to say. And then the normal gets all kind of messed up and funny. So if I just try and plug the normal straight out from the decal, then you get this horrible result here. So in trying to fix that, I would lerp just the output from this normal with a flat value, and we can see how that works. But the output that I'm going to be using on my texture here for the main surface of this object almost certainly isn't going to be a blank texture. So if I use this one as an example, then you can see the issue we've got. You can't see the rest of the normal there. So what we need to do is, if I just plug this in and plug this one back in to here, is if we blend those normals together with a blend angle corrected normal. So I want to blend this one. I'm blending my decal normal with my surface normal. And again, we get this problem around the edges. But before, when we solved that issue, the problem wasn't inside the decal zone, it's outside of the decal zone. So if I just try and mask them as before, then I can't do it. So what I found is you can just add this normal value to the decal normal. So I'm just adding a value to it. It doesn't appear to affect the texture in any way, and then I'm lerping them. And actually, if I just add them together without lerping them, then what you get is on those areas it's coming through with the normal. So you do need to lerp them to get rid of that. And now I've got those as like panels, but this stuff that's appearing on this surface is then getting that normal from below. And so it all works. And I think that's everything that I want to say about it. But again, if I was making if this was an environment and I can't use regular decals, then that's going to be a real issue. So, yes, I pretty much wonder what's going on. Like, let's say if I didn't use the specular. So let's say if I, in this example, take this debuffer decal that I wanted from before, which again, if I try and use it, it only appears in that area. Let's say I actually do on those use the specular just in case. Let's just plug the specular in, because we know for sure that this decal, let's say we're making sure that won't use the specular. So in this case, it's never going to use that output, the specular output. I guess that means if I just check that decal, that one's now set to 0. So if we use specular 0 as a baseline, then in this material here, I could potentially use the specular, which is the blue channel, and lerp in after all of these. Just lerp in from this one to just the decal color based on the specular. And this one, which is our base result, to just the metallic, so just that. And then this one, which is normal, just to the normal. Pretty sure this will work. I've not actually tried this. And again, it's based on that specular value. So now I think this one should work. Apparently it does not, because I've not got a normal plugged into that. This texture would then, so this one would actually just need those values. So let's see. Funny. This one, it's got the one up there, but if I add, let's see, if I just plug in, I want this decal, let's just make it a little bit simpler than what it is. And let's just make it those textures that we want. I want my base color, I want my normal. I want the opacity to just be that. And then we're not using the specular, so we're setting that to 1. That's probably why it's not working. Oh, it's creating it. Yeah, that's fine. That's kind of result we want. But it's not working quite yet, so let's just see. Like the specular set to 1. So based on this, it should be blending on top. So let's just think what's going wrong. At least it's not breaking the normal anymore, so that's good. It's one step. That normal's coming through. The base color isn't, so let's just check what we did in the base color. Oh, I didn't plug it in. So, yep, it's pretty late right now, but this should work, hopefully. Oh, it's kind of working. Broken this one a little bit, but this one's got broke for some reason, so let's just make sure we apply that. There we go, it's back to normal. Yeah, so the specular on this other decal should also be the alpha. That's strange that it wasn't working before, but okay. So now I've essentially hijacked the specular on the other map to make this decal work as a regular decal on the surface. So I suppose you could get both working, but yeah. That's interesting. Let's just see if that specular works. Basically, I've got a radial gradient here, so if I start previewing that, it's round like that. So let's just try that in both of those as well. Yeah, and it works. and it doesn't appear to have any weird issues above the other one. So okay, well, that's that problem solved. So hopefully the video's been useful, and I'll see you next one.